Thank you. I have been an entrepreneur in the fashion industry for 17 years. And back in 2003, when it all began for me, it was a bit a coincidence. I had my second child, and I was, honestly, I was just missing nice clothes for him. So I thought, okay, if I cannot find it in the shops, I'll just start my own company and start design and manufacture the clothes myself. And so I did. So that was my way of stumbling into the fashion industry. I knew nothing about the textile industry until a year down the road in 2004, where I visited my first factory in the Far East. And suddenly I understood that I had ended up in a very shitty industry, to be honest. Maybe you don't realize this, but the textile industry is actually one of the worst industries in the world when it comes to bad workers' rights, pollution, and products full of chemicals. So after visiting this factory in 2004, I took this decision about start working with sustainability. And we actually became very ambitious about this, but only focusing on the supply chain. So really focusing on organic fibers, recycled fibers, no harmful chemicals, good workers' rights, all these kind of things. And we really got good at it. We became pioneers, well known in the whole world about our work. Back then it was not so common to think about sustainability and textile. So we were really pioneers, and the Danish politicians called us to get good advice, and we won a lot of prizes. And it's fair to say that in the end we felt like green superheroes, really on top of the situation. Until one day, because there's always a day like that. It was an ordinary day where I asked 2 questions on our Facebook wall to our customers. I asked them, how much clothes do you have for your kid? And how much of it do you actually use? And both numbers were pretty shocking. In average, people had more than 200 pieces of clothes for their baby. And in average, they used less than 20 pieces. And I knew, because I was in the industry, that we spent more than 3,000 liters of water just to produce a small baby romper. And if you have 180 pieces of baby rompers in the back of your closet that you never use, that's a pretty big waste of resources. And it's a waste of your money as well. And that day really became kind of an epiphany for us. We understood that the idea about creating a true sustainable company was completely misunderstood by us. That we had only come up with half the solution. Because yes, we created this very nice, green, clean product, but the way people used our product was not very clever or sustainable. They bought the product. It was kind of expensive because producing sustainable clothing is actually quite expensive. So it was only for the privileged few families who could afford it. They bought this expensive clothes. They used it for 5 times, and then it became too small for their baby, and it ended up in the back of the closet. Waste of resources, waste of money. So that was kind of a bad situation for us, as you can imagine. We thought that we were green superheroes for 10 years, and suddenly we realized that we had only been part of the same problem that we had actually trying to solve. So after 10 years, we decided that we wanted to solve that challenge. And we sat down and spent a year researching about how consumer behave today. And we saw a lot of crazy facts. For instance, the fact about that 70% of your wardrobe is unworn. If you go back to your wardrobe, you can see that a lot of the clothes there, you never wear it. In average, in the Western world, it's 70% of the wardrobe that is passive. Another one is that, and this is my favorite one, that young Danish people, and this is a research that was done 2 years ago, young Danish people, they tend to buy new clothes instead of washing their dirty clothes. Yeah, that's pretty crazy, right? Well, I have a daughter, she's 20 years old, and I can see that happening. And how can that be happening? It's because buying clothes today is it's super cheap, more cheap than ever. You can actually wake up Friday morning and you can see, okay, the dress that I thought I was going to wear tonight, it's dirty and I haven't got the time to wash it. So I just go down to Gina Tricot, H&M, one of the other high street brands, and buy a new dress for $10. It's possible, it's cheap. Young people can do it, and this is the way they consume today, or we consume today. We're all part of this consumer model. Back then, we could also see that our target group, the kids and their parents, they were not better than this. Even though parents tend to, when they get their first child, they tend to become much more responsible because suddenly you start thinking about the future, the planet, and you really start to act more responsible. But for parents, it's actually quite difficult to act responsible because your kid grows, and your kid grows fast. Actually, your kid outgrows 8 sizes the first 2 years of its life, and you have to change the wardrobe accordingly to that. And that's a problem. You have to buy more than 200 pieces of clothes for your child in order to keep up with the pace. So even though you want to be a responsible consumer, it's impossible for you because your kid grows. So we sat there with all these different facts and trying to figuring out how to actually make a business model that could solve this. And what we came up with was a concept called Vigga, which was the first of its kind in the world. It was a concept with 2 elements, a very high quality kidswear brand, and a subscription service, a circular subscription service. And that means that we could offer to our customers that instead of buying clothes, they would have a monthly subscription fee, and for that amount they would always have super nice, sustainable, high quality clothes in the right size for their baby. And when it became too small, they received a new collection 1 size up and returned the outgrown collection to us. And we did a straight quality inspection, we cleaned the clothes, and that it was ready for a new family. So it was a circular concept. And this is 5 years ago. And back then, circular economy was really abstract, also for us. We started out in Denmark. Denmark is nice because it's small, it's a perfect lab to test out a concept like this. Also because a circular concept like this is very complex on the logistics side. Because one family is using the clothes that the next family should use in 3 months, and the third family, they must have it in 2 months, and so the complexity is very high. So Denmark is a perfect test place for that. And what we could see after running the business for 3 years were that the consumers, they were more than ready for a model like this. They didn't have to own their kidswear clothes, not at all. The service and the access to the clothes when they needed it was more than enough. We could also see that the logistic was something that we could definitely handle. And what we could also see was, because in a concept like this, the consumer plays a key role. So if the consumer doesn't play by the rule, everything breaks down. If the consumer doesn't return the clothes, the concept breaks down. If the consumer cuts all the legs of the baby rompers, the concept breaks down. But what we could see was the consumers, they behaved so nice. We thought that, for instance, just an example, we thought that we should replace 30% of a package, a bundle of kidswear clothes throughout its life cycle. We ended up by replacing 5%. So people were really behaving good in the model. And all these very good experiences gave us the courage to take a bigger step into a more generic, scalable solution for the fashion industry. Because it's no secret that the fashion industry is in deep shit these years. And the troubles has increased since the credit crunch in 2008. Before them, all the brands, they had 2, maybe 4 collections per year. A summer collection, a winter collection, maybe a pre-summer, a pre-winter collection. That was how it was back then. Then we had the credit crunch, and suddenly everybody was behind budgets. And the way they solved that was to invent new collections all the time, put it into market in order to try to create more consumption, more needs among the consumers. And today it's not uncommon that brands puts out 20, 30, up to 50 collections on the market per year. And as you can imagine, the window for each collection where it's the new collection becomes more and more tight. Before it was 3, 5, 6 months where this was the new collection. Now it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it's so stupid. I mean, do you know any other industries that puts millions into convincing their customers that this dress is the most attractive dress in the world, just to reduce the price by 50% 2 weeks later? This is how the fashion industry works today. It's devaluating its own products, and that causes so much trouble in the fashion industry. Of course, because there's an overexploitation of resources in order to keep up this consumption model, but also because it cuts the margins, and it's very difficult to earn money today in the fashion industry. We can also see other things happening since 2008, and that is that the consumers have been moving more and more away from the brands. More and more consumers are buying their clothes secondhand. Consignment stores around the corner or secondhand peer-to-peer platforms on the internet are exploding these years. And just an example, last year, the secondhand platforms, they grew 24 times more than the traditional retail in the fashion industry. So the fashion industry and the brands especially are under huge pressure. And there's a lot of opportunity when there's a crisis like that. And that's what we could see. And after 3-4 years of experience with Vigga, the circular subscription service with the for babies wear, we could see that we could translate this model into a more generic, scalable solution for the fashion industry that could actually solve all these issues in one time. So what we wanted to create, and we actually launched just a week ago, was a white label platform solution together with a reverse logistics setup. And that means that we create a turnkey solution for brands that enables brands to offer new ways of selling their products. So instead of just telling their customers that they can buy their dress and then do whatever they want to do with the dress, they don't care. They now have the opportunity via our white label platform to offer rentals or offer to trade in the products, other kind of circular sales models, purchase models. And as I said, we helped our first brand go live a week ago, and we will help the next brand go live in about 3 weeks. And Jeppe, he will tell a little bit more about the technical stuff.
I don't know if my speaker is on. It is. Super. Yes, I will be in charge of the bit more technical aspects of the continued platform. Starting out, I want to talk a bit about the difference between web shops and a circular platform. I don't know how many of you have worked with the Umbraco as a web shop platform, but there's actually a lot of good frameworks for making web shops on top of Umbraco. But when it comes to circular, it's very different. So it's actually what's called contradictive things they need to do. Because what a typical web shop framework is doing is focusing on the user, trying to sell more, try to make the users consume more, making upselling, more sales, and all this omni-channel offers is surrounded by with focus on the users. So every time you have a web shop platform, is always focused on the user. But when we look at the real users, as Vigga talked about before, we actually see a different pattern, because people tend to go on the big retail platforms like Boots here in Denmark and buy their clothes, or they buy it directly from the fashion brands web shops, and they have it for use it a couple of times, and many users then use the second-hand platforms in Denmark, for example trend sales, to resell it to other users or other customers. But what is happening here is that because all the platforms that is doing this is focused on end sale, they leave all the problems to the end consumer, because they need to make pictures of the dress, put it online, and be responsible. They also need to negotiate price, and the ones who buy the clothes on the second-hand platforms, they're not sure about the quality. So what the Continued project is trying to do is to give the responsibility to the brand to ensure the quality and facilitate this movement that is in general about making things circular. So here today, instead of talking about the customer journey, I will talk about the product journey. Because if you look at the product and make the journey of the product between users better, we actually make a better experience for the user, we believe. So the core of the Continued platform and what we use is RFID chips. And an RFID chip is a small brick, or it can actually be a lot of things. It can also be a sticker, but the ones we're using here is a small plastic chip that is very small, that can, I'll just take a Umbraco t-shirt here, but it can be fitted into, for example, the washing mark, or maybe down here. And it's a very small chip that can be washed, and it's a commodity. It costs 1 Danish kroner to buy this kind of chip. And what it does is that as soon as it comes to a RFID scanner, it will send a unique ID. So this kind of chip doesn't do anything by itself. It simply just have a unique identifier that it will tell a scanner, this is me and this is my ID. But because we are using this, we can follow all the products. So just before I'll show the platform, I will talk a bit about what we used for the platform. The chip is central, and because we're using the chips, we also, of course, use the receiver and scanners. And then, of course, we have a lot of software. Umbraco is a major component of the platform, and we made it as a headless CMS because we wanted to be able to have flexibility for the platform for future. If we want to make an app but also for security considerations and to be technical independent, so to speak. Then we have a lot of other things like payment gateway, financial system, SMS gateway, and so on. And that's actually independent component that can be any kind of other components. Yes, and then we used Elasticsearch, and Amazon we used for global media storage. And below everything we have MongoDB, because Umbraco is used mainly as a thin client to manage things for the webmaster, but all the business logic is of course based on .NET Core and MongoDB. Yeah, and of course when you have this whole logistics setup about circulating clothes, you also need a lot of other hardwares like label printer and so on. And we used WebShipper for this. So, to understand the platform, we have like 4 main roles, so to speak. We have the brands, and as Vigga told, we started out with 2 brands. One is called by Malene Birger, which is a quite known Danish fashion brand. Another one is called Ganni, that is also originally a Danish fashion brand. And then continued as the owner of the platform, of course, and then a lot of external partners, for example, for cleaning clothes and for repairing clothes and for shipment and all the other operations that is necessary for doing this kind of operation. And then, of course, at the end, the customer. So the architecture very roughly looks a bit like this. We have on top of everything, we have the web shops, that's the top line. Here we have Ganni and Malene Birger, and we use Umbraco as headless to manage all the content. Then we have some API connections to the whole fulfillment part that consists of 3 workstations for handling all the shipping of clothes, but also when the clothes is returned, and also, of course, for packing the clothes and the main storage. And I'll go through this overall now and show you the example of this. So on the front end part of it, we have the platforms, and I'll show example now. This is by Malene Birger, and as you can see, it looks a bit like a standard web shop. You have some categories. You can browse the categories, and you can click into a product. And when you have a product, of course, you have product variants, and then you can choose the size. The thing that is differentiated from a normal web shop is that we have a different pricing model, because the continued project or the continued platform, you cannot keep things forever. The idea is everything should be circulated and be returned to the platform. So we have 2 ways you can use the clothes. Here the first option is rent, and there we have a first week price, because it's always more expensive to send something out and get it back. And then of course if you have subsequent weeks price, then it's cheaper. And you can choose to rent it now. And in case you do this, there will be some recurring payment that happens via ADN weekly, or you can choose to select date, and you can book the date when you want to have your clothes delivered and for how many weeks you want it. Another interesting option is you can choose to buy it, and here you buy it actually for the same price as you will pay in a shop. But the platform offers, and you get it as new, because it's only the new clothes you can buy this way. But as soon as you have it, you can actually choose to return it back. So if you keep this dress for, let's say, 7 weeks, then you have a fixed price that you know you'll get back when you return it, if it's not damaged the clothes. And this way, we can support a lot of customers who want new clothes. But still, even though they want new clothes, it can be reused by others, because as soon as it comes back, it will be recirculated to be rented out. And else, everything is pretty standard web shop-like. As I showed before, it's a white label platform. So it means that all shops are a bit different, and we have an independent structure. And we can see Gani here. They're new. It's not released yet. It's a what you call first version here. So they're different, and the reason they are this is because it's the fashion brands who do the marketing of their own sites. It's the fashion brands who own their own Umbraco platform with this continued, and they control the UI via Umbraco. Each brand has their own Umbraco instance here, where Umbraco as headless is set up, where they can access this. So let's go down, and I'll show an example here. And this is only test content. So there's not so much data here, but it anyway gives an idea about how the platform looks like. We have a classic site structure, but what we did here was add a commerce part that is custom built. And if you look here in Umbraco, we can on each instance have multiple amount of stores. Here we have Gani, and we have some categories listed below the store. And then we have a full product list here. And I'll just show you how it works. So I'll just click into a product here. We have many of the same fields as a normal web shop has. We have description, title, and then we have something else, like we set the material composition as formalized data, because we are collecting data to find out how long time clothes are lasting. So we have some special fields here. But else we have the categories here and related product. And then we have a bit more advanced pricing engine here, because when you're doing a circular e-commerce solution, you need to find a way to set the price. And here we have the two options that we did in the first version for the renting option, how to calculate this, and also the option of enabling the buy and sell back option, where you can set percentage of how much you can pay back. And of course, we're working on the pricing engine, because when you're working with circular retail, this is the most important thing actually, to make most use of all the clothes. The inventory is also there's no variant in this one, so I'll just select another one that is already created. Here we go. The inventory management is also slightly different from normal inventory management in a web shop, because everything has to be circulated, so you have to track all products as unique. So here I'll just show, here we have all the sizes of a specific product variant, and everything like this looks pretty normal, but when you come down here, you have all the different steps where or locations where the clothes can be. So we have the incoming when it's just added, we have the pick and pack when it's new to be sold. We have the thing that has already been used once, but it's on pick and pack. Then we have the things that is out for rentals, the things that is at the cleaning facilities, the things that is at repair, the one that is sold as new, and the ones that are sold as used, and discarded and deposited clothes. And I'll just show you how now to add a product. And to explain this, of course, when you see it like this, it's not the real production setup. The scanner I showed on the slide before is actually working this way, that the cloth here is chipped, and you will run it on a scanner, and then it will put the ID of the chip in the clipboard. And here we just, in this pilot, we just did it simple, so we just click here and paste it in. I will just add a unique number now. For example, try to remember this. And I'll submit this one. And now I added the product, but it's not available for being bought yet. So I'll just take you a bit further down the diagram here. Workstation number 2. This is where we add things to the warehouse from where it can be packed. And I'll show you one of the workstations. There is like 3 workstations in total, and I'll just show it here. And here again, we are simulating the scan because we don't have a physical scanner, but what a scanner can do actually with this software that we installed and modified a bit is that it can send an ID of a chip as a query string. So that means actually when you put down your clothes on a scanner, it will send a query string as an URL, and it can load the page automatically because it's recognized. But here I will just do it manually. I will paste in the code I just did before. And I will see now the clothes that I just added as a chip number coming up here on the screen. And I will not allow webcam because I don't need it now. And you can see this is the incoming product. And you have to imagine here that at the product facility, this is not someone standing with the mouse. This is a touch screen, and there's a huge amount of clothes. So they simply just scan it, and then they can click if there's something of all the checkpoints that is not correct. So this means, for example, when they check it in, see, okay, there's holes in this clothes, and then you have option to add image, and it just activate the webcam. It doesn't work because my webcam is off here, but the machines are stationary, so then they can add documentation, and all the documentation is tracked on the specific cloth item. So now I'll just assume everything is okay, and I'll complete it, and it will say, okay, you can add this to the shelf. So there is a workstation 3 has all this shelf where you can add the IDs of what shelf you will put the things. Yes. So I'll move on and talk a bit about what you need for starting a circular retail. The most important is actually this tracking and location of things, and that's what makes it very much different from a traditional web shop, because here you just have an end cell and then it's goodbye to the products. But when you have circular, as I showed before, you need to have many different locations of a product, and you also need to have many different ownerships. Is it now the user who owns it, or is it the brands who owns it? So it's shifting of ownership and shifting of location all the time. And this way, this is something that you really need to pay attention to also regarding the financial system that you use, because when you come to the quarter where you have to make a status of your inventory, you need to know where everything is and calculate legal-wise also what you own and what is sold. And all this is one of the most difficult things to do when you have to do with circular e-commerce, because standard platforms for e-commerce doesn't support this. Then of course there's a lot of practical work to set up, because you need the whole fulfillment things, because you're taking a deeper responsibility of the product. So it's not just something like you sell something and then you can take it back if it breaks. No, you have to make sure that the product can live on as long as possible. And that means that you need to be able to take care about, for example, with the clothes here, it should be washed and cleaned, but also if it's broken, it should be repaired and added back to the platform again. And the last thing that is very important when you have this kind of circular platform is the commercial model, because everybody understands what a normal web shop does when you buy something. Then you have the ownership, but on a circular platform there can be many different options. You can rent out, you can buy out, you can buy and return. You can also swap ownership on some platforms. So there's a lot of different commercial models here. And one of the most difficult things is actually getting the customers or the users who uses your platform to understand the model you're offering, because it's always something different. And what is also very, takes time anyway, and it's a bit interesting to do, is finding out how can you accommodate the local legislation that is in the country for making e-commerce platforms? Because there's a lot of rules that goes for each country, what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do regarding consumer rights. and this can be a bit in conflict with making a circular platform. But this is something that can be worked with, and legal advisors are very happy for these platforms because they make a fortune out of advising on this, because it's very complex legal framework you need to do actually for making this. Getting this in place, all the terms, user terms, and understanding for the users is something that is the most challenging with this. Yeah, and finally, our key learnings for this project is actually that it's very important to involve the stakeholders from the beginning, because if you want fashion brands to change the way of doing business, you need to involve them very early in the process, because they can actually decide if they want to go ahead, because they have a big operation they need to change to try to go into this kind of project. So it's very important to involve the different stakeholders early in the process when you're doing a circular platform, to find out what is actually possible to do with a product. And then it's also very important during the whole project development to be open for change, because there's not so many patterns for making a circular platform. It's a bit new territory, new for everyone, so we have to expect there will be some things that has to be redone and some things that didn't work as expected and so on. It's very interesting, but it's also, you have to be able to change during the process. So having a lean mindset about this is very important. And finally, we found it very usefully to invite the users in and having workshops, talking with customers, finding out what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, and also having the platforms in store to try to see how people really reacted to this. Yes, and we had some time for questions, or if there's something we would like to know more about.
I have a question.
Yes?
When you talk about making the users use the platform, isn't it able to, with that solution from Umbraco, to use that in an existing Power BI or Tableau or Click?
Are you talking about the brands or the customers here?
I'm talking about the use of the software to integrate it into the existing Power BI or Tableau or Click.
Yeah, actually we were having a lot of talks with some of the brands in the beginning to make a fully integrated solution. But what we found out that we didn't want to make a big SAP project or some other big commerce, because then it would be a project by itself and take multiple years, because they're very, as I said, the big fashion brands are very big operations. So if you need to go into their back-end systems and so on and make an integrated solution like we started out with, we could see that this will be a huge project just by itself. And we first wanted to get some experience with it, because this is a pilot to find out how it works. And this way we actually cut a lot of the ideas about making fully integrated platform, because we first wanted to find out what kind of offers are interesting for the customers and what do the brands want to do, and nobody knows. So in this way, it's not so hard to just add 50 or 100 products and do it manually instead of making this deep integration. So it's not like we can't make the integration, but it was not put into this part of the project because we simply don't have enough knowledge yet to do it.
No. The approach for us has been to offer a sandboxed pilot project for the brands, plug and play turnkey solution for them, and actually just say to them, you just deliver the products to us and we take care of everything else. You do the marketing, the customer service like you used to do, deliver the products and we take care of everything else. And then we run a pilot on a selected market for 6 months, and before we kick off the pilot, we together decide on which thesis are we going to test, and all these scenarios that we are going to test and look for, the KPIs, and then we will gain enough data and learnings throughout the pilot that would help us to actually make a smooth integration down the road. So that's definitely the most effective way to onboard as many brands as possible and actually get them to test this circular retail, which every brand thinks is a very good idea, but as soon as we start, if our approach was to integrate deeply into their organization and their systems from day one, it will stop there. So yeah, so it's about making a very agile, sandboxed way of testing it. Yeah, exactly. And also in respect of the pioneer work, it is that, you know, we have a lot of assumptions also, but there's so much we don't know about the consumers and how they behave, and we have to pay respect for to that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Any more questions? I have a mic.
My question's a bit of an implementation question. So you've got your individual products, your variants, but then you attach a unique RFID to each one. Did you find you could manage and model all of that within Umbraco, or did you have a separate data store for example, your instance for each individual garment, for example? How did you model all that behind the scenes? How did you find that? Because there must be a lot of data.
Yeah, I don't know, Vadim?
We call for you, Vadim.
Do you want to answer this question? Vadim is slightly more technical.
Yeah.
I can ask later, it's fine. I can go ask him.
Okay, you can maybe meet up after and he can give you the details, but I can say overall, we wanted to make an independent structure, and if you look at the, I'll just jump back here a bit. We wanted to make a lot of isolated instances that can run by itself. Also because, for example, if one brand wants to have a fulfillment station in the States, these workstations, they can just be added to another Umbraco instance. So there's no, what you call, direct connection between each Umbraco instance and the workstations. So it means that if you want to open up a market in US, you can make a new set of workstations there, and one workstation will be put in the warehouse, another workstation will be put in the cleaning facilities. So the workstations has different locations, and that's why we have this API connect between the different web shops and the workstations, because then we have a very flexible structure. And also regarding the economy system here for this platform, because it's like a pilot, we used economic to integrate to make the invoices and make the billing and so on, because it's very fast to integrate with. It's very easy instead of doing it for Navision or SAP. But a third, what you call, fashion brand could have any kind of other financial system or any other payment provider than ADN. They could also have DIPS, for example. So it's not so much. We could see that the brands wanted to have control over the platform. They wanted to have ownership. And for them to invest in it and marketing it, they needed to have the ownership. So we didn't want to make a platform that contains all the brands. We wanted the brands to take the responsibility of circulating the clothes. And this is why we have this very fragmented architecture, because it gives more flexibility to scale and to test. And also, if you have one Umbraco installation working one way, the another one can have different payment options and different options to do, because it's very much a pilot, because it's so new and we don't know what works and what does not work. And if you have many brands doing different kinds of marketing and different kinds of commercial offerings, you will learn a lot from the brands also, because they're much better at marketing than we are, for example, right? They know their customers, they know what to do. So this way we also see the brands' ownership of the platforms as very important for getting the real knowledge of developing the next versions of the platform.
My question's very non-tech, more about the commerciality of the project for the actual manufacturers and brands themselves. You talked about the difficulty in the fashion industry and the number of releases of new lines and so on. What's the incentive here? Obviously the eco incentive is obvious. What's the incentive from a business perspective for the brands to do what you're describing here, and how does it fit against what they normally do, or do they drop what they normally do and do this instead? Just a bit of...
That's a very good question. In the beginning, we thought that the whole resource optimization angle would be our best USP for the brands when we were selling the platform to them. But what we can see is that it's the growing second-hand market that actually becomes the most important argument, because if you look at the fashion industry today, the biggest risk for a fashion brand is actually the second-hand market. It's a parallel market and it's exploding, and the fashion brands, they have no control over their brands, which is sold there, and they have no profit at all. So it's actually becoming pure risk management to start reclaiming or including the second-hand way of doing business into their core business model. So until now, it seems like that's the most important thing for the brands. But on the long run, it's also, I mean, yeah, that's how we can convince the brands to actually do it. And then, of course, all the data that we can offer to them, because today they know nothing about their customers, because they sell the dress one time and then it's just goodbye. They know nothing about how their products behave, and they know nothing about how their consumers interact with their products. By offering them these data, they can really learn a lot, and they can become much more relevant and precise for their customers.
What industry are you going into next?
Now we conquer the fashion industry, and then I will answer that question afterwards. But it's a relevant question, of course, because this is actually not a platform invented for the fashion industry. We work in the fashion industry because this is our industry, and because it's an industry with huge challenges. But it's basically just a platform that enables a brand or a company to move a product around many times. And that could be in many other industries as well, of course. What industry do you think we should take next? Furniture, yeah. IKEA just started renting out their furnitures, yeah.
Fantastic idea.
Thank you.
All right, more questions? One right here.
Yeah, I have another non-tech question. Where did you do your marketing, and if you are planning to expand your target group?
So where we do our marketing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, we do as little marketing as possible because what we try to do is to make the brands take care of all the marketing themselves. So because we are not marketing experts at all, and the brands, they know how to sell their products. They are the marketing experts. So in order to make as many transactions as possible and back that up via marketing, that will be the brands, our clients' responsibility. But our own marketing, we do that ourselves. But it's actually a minimum we do. We try to get the brands tell the story and do the marketing.
Yeah, but then people can just go to the shop and buy in a regular way. Should I say it again?
What?
Should I say it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the people can just go to the shop and buy it the regular way, because I think a lot of people don't know about the possibility to just rent it from you. So
no, but for instance, I mean, if we could you look try to go to bymalenebuer.com, the normal By Malene Buer shop. So I just show you, because our platform are integrated. Our platform is integrated into the brand's existing e-commerce. So it actually just become, if you go up, Jeppe, and you go to the
I need to be the DK version or?
Yeah, it's the DK version. Yeah, you're at the Spanish version for some reason.
I think I was testing something.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is one of our clients, by Malene Biv, a Danish fashion brand, and this is their normal web shop, right? As you can see, one of the menus, one of the bullets in the menu is Rent the Look, which is a link to our platform. But for the consumer, it looks like part of the traditional web shop, but the Rent the Look part is powered by Continued. So the marketing is actually just done in a traditional way by the brands, and the customers will find it where they find the normal, where they find the clothes.
Thanks for explanation. That's very smart.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? All right. What an awesome platform.
Right.
Thank you so much to
Thank
Vigga
you.
and Jeppe.